Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this March 13th, 2016 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can listen to my show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's on FirstAmendmentRadio.com Pacific Time, and also at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, as well as go to my website at arcticbeacon.com. Today I'm going to deal with a subject that needs to be discussed, and that is who really controls our country, what's going on behind the scenes in most every aspect when we look at the wars going on, the presidential debates and elections coming up, as well as what's happening to our freedoms and our Constitution, our religious freedoms, our freedom of speech, and etc., etc. And let me go back in time a bit to tell you the basis for what I'm going to say and how I believe it is the truth. Now, there are going to be a lot of little facts and things that are difficult to prove because when you deal with secret organizations, they don't leave a clear trail, especially as time passes on. It becomes more difficult. But if you look at the fruits of their work, if you look at history, if you look at what's going on today, the signs and symbols they give us, then the only answer is this: that the Vatican-led New World Order and their henchmen, the Jesuits, are behind most everything we do in this country, our education, our political system, and it is no coincidence that the candidates this year, and every 4 years I like to tune in to what's going on in the fictional world, in the Hegelian dialectic world, the false world they've presented to you as truth. And if you look at the candidates today, what I first look at is linguistics. And every year, a group of linguistics and scholars piece apart every one of the debates, and they give it a clarification on what level the candidates are speaking at. What I mean by that is what English are they using to communicate to us. Now this year in the previous, 12, 13 debates, they've pieced apart every candidate. And it's very simple. Donald Trump's language is that of a second grader. And it moves up the ladder a bit and a bit and a bit to the highest speaking candidate is Bernie Sanders, and he speaks at a high school level. Now in between the other candidates, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Hillary Clinton, and John Kasich fall somewhere in between the second grade and high school. That is how they speak to us. And if you look at Donald Trump's speaking, it is amazingly amazingly categorized as creating fear. What he's done even in his recent rallies that have been marred by protesters, and his words, I believe, are what's bringing that. His rhetoric creates tension. His rhetoric is designed to split apart people. And all you have to do is go to some of his statements, and I'm sure you've heard them. They're outlandish, and they're designed to create dissent not only among Muslims, Christians, not only blacks and whites, but among the liberal and not, conservative people. He's bringing out the worst in people, and that to me is a design that the Jesuits do all the time. If you look at their history, that's what they've been involved with, tearing apart countries from within and creating the synthesis they want. So they play the Hegelian dialectic. It's going on right before our eyes in the political realm. We have the thesis, the antithesis, the two parties going back and forth, even a split in all the parties. And then, in the end, they're going to get what they want, a divided country, perhaps even worse than that. Now, the point I'm trying to make is, perhaps someone said to you, as I woke up this morning, I walked out, took a walk with my dogs, and there was chatter about the debates in the coffee shops. There was chatter about Trump. And there were those that, were speaking quite loudly about him, defending him, others calling it insane. And the point I'm trying to make is, none of the conversations I heard were dealing with what really is going on. They have this idea. The closest we got to it was, I've heard it's a conspiracy theory that the Clinton campaign, because Trump has given money to Clinton in the past, they want him to run so that Hillary can get in office. I assure you, that's not even close to what's going on. Because I believe behind the scenes, all of these candidates have been selected by Freemasonry and the Vatican working together. If you look at these candidates, look at one. Look at Hillary Clinton. She and Bill Clinton, their mentor is a Jesuit. And you go back and check that out. Now look at Bernie Sanders. Although he proclaims to be, the man who's going to bring back America through, handouts in a sense. Where's his offices? His offices are in a Masonic building in Burlington, Vermont. He's a Freemason. And you know the connection between Freemasonry and the high-level Vatican, who denounces it publicly, but in the end, they are involved in Freemasonry. I know that for a fact. When I was in Rome, I can tell you that story a little later. Now, going to the Republican side, Donald Trump is definitely a high-level Freemason. He lives on according to the Daily Mail. Now, this article appeared. He lives on the 66th floor in the Trump Towers, and his house, well, you can go in. They've showed pictures of his penthouse. I guess he lives on 3 floors there. He has his offices or something. The penthouse is basically designed to honor Apollo and other gods. So when you look at him, and then you look at certain pictures, you'll find that his daughters are giving the Masonic hand signals, etc., etc. Now, Ted Cruz, he loves to give you the hidden hand when the national anthem is being played before the debates. And the hidden hand is you put your hand inside your coat, just like Napoleon, just like Stalin, the rest of them, and that's a sign of the brotherhood. Now, the other two I don't know much about, but that to me is the key people that are running in the elections this year. So we have this hidden secret, this hidden idea. We have a controlled opposition to the American people. We have no choice in these elections. They have already picked out who's going to win, and it wouldn't matter any of these guys because they all take their orders from Rome. And if you don't believe me, let's look a little bit behind the scenes. Now, all you got to do is do a quick check on all the people that are advising Obama and all the people in our government. Look, it is basically a country that has been taken over by the Knights of Malta Catholic influence for a reason, and that is to bring us into a one-world government, a one-world religion that has nothing to do with Christianity or Islam or anything. They are splitting us apart to create what I consider to be World War III coming in the future. Now, no one can predict when or exactly how they're going to do it. I mean, you can look at the assault on the American people and the world through many, many areas. We can look at it through the air with chemtrails, through the water with fluoride, through our food, GMO foods. We can look at it through the toxins, through the vaccines, through the takeover of land. We can look at it through the proliferation of wars. We can look at it through the drugs that are brought in through Operation Gladio, the Vatican being the money laundering operation in Rome, many, many things. And drugs being placed into the American population to get our people high, as well as to use that money to fund rebel groups creating wars all over the place in the world. And this is how it's done. The fields were first in Burma, but when they were dried up by a drought, they lost a lot of money during that period of time. So they moved them to Afghanistan, and that's where they are right now. And that's why we're there, to protect those poppy fields. But anyway, why doesn't one of these people running for office or journalists mention Operation Gladio, which is still in existence? And it had its inception with Pope Pius XII and the beginning of our CIA in Rome. This was the way they came up with funding these illegal wars all over the world. And they use the model that Chiang Kai-shek used against Mao Zedong, or vice versa, or whatever. And what they wanted was to figure out a way to stop the insurgents in China, so they decided to get together with the drug cartels, raise money, get the Chinese people high, use that money to fund the war against Mao Zedong. So, here we go. The Jesuit Order. What I've said is a lot in these first 10 minutes. And I know it's going to go in one ear and out the other of many, many people. Many people will say, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. Many people will say, this can't be the way it is. America is not this kind of country. Well, it is my contention, if you study history, there's been a hidden agenda, even back during the time when George Washington was given the hidden hand symbol, when he was given pictures or in portraits or whatever. You'll see him with his hand inside his lapel, his coat. And when you start checking out George Washington, there's a good possibility he was baptized Catholic. He worked together with the Vatican. And I am convinced that from the beginning of this country, the design was to create a country of freedom so that it can be taken away, and the Vatican has an easy route into this country with the idea of controlling it. Look at all the dioceses now. Look at how we even have the Office of Inquisition in America in San Francisco. But all this stuff seems to get overlooked. But anyway, think about this. There's also the possibility there will not be an election. Now, you may call me crazy when I say this, but there's a movie called Back to the Future, and there's a guy that took this apart, and I listened to it, and I'm not one to, I know there's a lot of Hollywood signals they give us regarding what they plan on doing, but this movie could be the all-time quoted movie in the history of movie making. It does clearly, years ahead, and when it was made in the 80s, late 80s, point to 9/11. It gives you that signal right there, and you can go watch it. It also points to 10/4/2016. Now, all I'm saying is if they pulled off 9/11 and they talked about it, you'll see the signs and symbols in Back to the Future, the Michael J. Fox movie. They also point to 10/6/2016. So could there be something they have planned for then? Which could be so unbelievable that it would suspend elections and give Obama another term under national security laws, similar to what happened to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That's a possibility. Now people really have ammunition, call me crazy. But I think it's time we start looking outside the box. Even you people who think these elections are legit. And we have to start thinking on who are creating all these wars. Why is America losing its freedoms? And do you think some billionaire egomaniac like Donald Trump and my dog just knocked over something and scurried out? So when you heard that bang, that's what it was. You think some egomaniac like him, when you start listening to his rhetoric, is going to save America, and you see what he's done in the past, this is a ploy. He's been placed there for a very specific reason, and you can bet the Brotherhood, the Vatican, Freemasonry put him there. And what's happened since is creating this chaos, order out of chaos. And it's playing out right before our eyes. Okay, we have about 11 minutes. And so, do you know anything about the Jesuit Order? Oh, there's a lot of people listening to my show that do. But there's so many people, when I mention that word out in the streets, they go, what's that? What? It's almost a 500-year-old covert operations, geopolitical male organization structured as a secret military operation, but to the public, they're considered these great educators, this missionary clergy created by the Vatican to go out and spread peace and love, and that's just the opposite. They demand secret oaths, complete obedience to each direct superior, which is ultimately the superior general, nicknamed the Black Pope. How many times have we mentioned that on this show in recent years? Going back 10 years. Now, the Society of Jesus, as they call themselves, was originally used by the Vatican to counter the various Reformation movements in Europe. So what they were doing was they were formed to stop Protestantism at its heart, which basically stated that in the book of Revelations, the Vatican institution was the Antichrist. And you don't need to go to the church to get to heaven. You can read the Bible. And this was a no-no back then. And so the Jesuits were created to basically create genocide, kill these people, so that the Vatican can continue to be in power both in the religious area and the political area. Absolute temporal ruling power has always been and always is, even to this day, the Jesuit primary objective. That's why Georgetown is right next to the White House. That's why Washington, D.C. is built on John Carroll, the first bishop, Jesuit-trained bishop in America. That's why it's built on his property. America was formed with a hidden agenda, and the hidden agenda is being played out right before our eyes. Now, if you think the Jesuit Order has changed, you can bet their main principles have never changed. Their modus operandi has become even more treacherous and tricky. They've gotten more power over the years, controlling most avenues of our government and our social institutions, as well as our educational institutions. And this treachery is going on as we speak. Now, since 1814. Now, there is a whole big, huge story, and I've done shows on this, regarding the Vatican and the Jesuits during a time when they seemed to split. Now, it is my contention they never did, and the whole idea of what happened to the Jesuits during this time was to infiltrate the New World. And I'll get into that at another time. But ever since those dates, this obscenely wealthy Vatican institution and its Catholic clergy presently control various other organizations together today with the Military Order of the Knights of Malta. They control the United Nations, NATO, European Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, various banks, big corporations, secret societies, numerous societies and cults, such as Freemasonry. Now, many people said to me, well, did you hear the Vatican's official stance is to basically denounce Freemasonry? And I says, yes, that's the official double talk they give you. When I was in Rome in the early 80s, there was a huge scandal, and one of the things that came out in the French and Italian papers that there were over 150 high-level bishops and cardinals who had been outed as being Freemasons in some of the most treacherous lodges. The P2 Lodge that was involved in so much murder and thievery and bank scandals. And they even had names and nicknames of all these priests. So what happens is they denounce them on the outside. And in the inside, they do all of their dirty work. So I am convinced that they work together. Now, you have to note that the Jesuit-controlled Vatican and the state, remember they got together with Mussolini in 1929 to create this Vatican City now, which is a city-state. They have their own head of state. They have a central bank, which is the biggest money laundering operation in the world. They have jurisdiction rules, canon law, admiralty law. You ought to look at these things because that's what they adhere to. They don't adhere to our Constitution, and those who work with them in our government, they take a vow to work under canon law. Their main cause, what do you think the Pope was here for when he spoke to Congress, when he spoke to the UN? That's who their allegiance is first, this Antichrist organization. There's some 200 international agreements. We touched on that last week. Diplomatic treaties, legal agreements, concordats, or lateral treaties which grant the Vatican special nation privileges. They have such an underground network of secret archives Now, I was there, and I said the best way to find out really what's going on, they have estimated 84 kilometers of shelving space and a large collection of ancient artworks in the Vatican museums. Now, do you know that the Office of Inquisition, headed by American Bishop William Levada, since 2000, an Italian police force and a Swiss military guard consisting of only Catholic single males with Swiss citizenship and Swiss military training? The Jesuit Order. Let's see how much time we got here. I always hate running out and then talking to the clear blue sky. I got about 3 minutes. The Catholic clergy and the Military Order of Malta work together. It's an extremely patriarchal culture. This type of rigid social structure is one of the main aspects of these fascistic groups. This is what's controlling our country today behind the scenes. Now, there's so many things. All you got to do is Google. Start checking out the Jesuit Order from it, not from what they tell you about their. They hide behind many things, and I've done many shows. If you want to look at who they've really worked with in the past, I'll open up the second segment with that and go to a video which explains a little bit about the Jesuit Order. And the guy does a pretty good job, so I'm going to do that in the second half hour. But just to end this, Pope Pius XII worked with Hitler. That's a fact. He created that man. He created that monster. And the people in our country working with the Vatican knew it as well. And they were doing the Hegelian dialectic during World War II. Their goal was the United Nations. The one step closer to a one world government, one world order, where our Constitution has no meaning. Also, they worked together to create Stalin. And I've done many shows on a Father Edmund Walsh from Georgetown University who created the School of Diplomatic Foreign Service, where many of our diplomats today are trained. And he was the broker who went over there and made sure that Stalin got into the Bolshevik Revolution with Western money. So they are working now. Should we as a country deal with these people? Yes, because they are working together. And they do it in a worldwide manner. All of these leaders playing their role today. Putin, the Chinese leader, the leaders in Saudi Arabia, our leaders, Australian, English, all playing their part to bring about this one world government, one world religion. It makes sense when you think about it. What's the other alternatives you think about? Oh, accidental wars? Oh, yes. You know, it's really you know how many people in this country really want to go to war? You know how many people in the Muslim world really would want to go to war unless they were provoked into it? No, there wouldn't be these huge wars, but they function because they have created them. And it's about time you look at it from that aspect. Because it makes sense when you look at history of this organization, of what they've done in the past, and what they're doing today. Now, in the next half hour, I want to play this little presentation. It's pretty good. I won't get through all of it. You've heard enough of me today on this subject. But there are a growing amount of people who are starting to understand this. Now, I remember 10 years ago, I remember 30 years ago when I was in Rome. God, I can't believe how time flies. I first learned about it. And I couldn't believe it. So I understand it, but it's a high time that you take an advanced course in this area of politics, in this area of who creates wars, in this area of basically how we're going to lose our rights if we don't wake up. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal. And at the outset, I said this was 3/13/2016. It's actually 3/14/2016 on a Monday. I guess I got mixed up with the time change. We sprung forward. And it always messes me up a little bit. But anyway, it's Monday, 3/14/2016, the second half hour. I want to play that presentation about some of the shenanigans of the Jesuit Order. But let me first mention this. And I've done shows on this in the past, and very in-depth. But let's just refresh your memory. The Vatican Jesuit Masonic Network operates mainly out of the following cities. District of Columbia, which includes Washington, D.C. It's the military center. It is not a part of the United States. The City of London, the United Kingdom, the economic center of this triumvirate of evil. It's a sovereign state since 1649. Owned by the City of London Corporation, not a part of England. And then there's Vatican City, Rome, Italy, the religious center, a sovereign state since 1929, not a part of Rome, Italy. Now, the District of Columbia Act of 1871 turned D.C. into a municipal corporation. Congress has the supreme authority of the city and the federal district with its own special constitutional amendments in 1961. Now, it's interesting, but these three cities have their own flag. Yeah. Now, there is an increasingly common belief among many that this act has overturned the U.S. constitutional republic. These people state that the corporate U.S. is actually operating under the name of United States of American caps, noting the capital letters as a distinction from the constitutional republic. The Jesuit Bishop John Carroll, like I mentioned earlier, was probably the richest man in America in the late 1700s. Carroll allowed funding to construct D.C., which is nicknamed Rome of the Potomac. The owner of the land used to be Francis Pope, and his priest was Jesuit Andrew White. Washington, D.C.'s original name was Rome, Maryland, and a branch of the Potomac River was called Tiber Creek, which was named after the Tiber River in Rome. Like Rome, Washington, D.C. has its 7 hills whose names are Capitol Hill, Meridian Hill, Floral Hills, Forest Hills, Hillbrook, Hillcrest, and Knox Hill. Interesting. Another Masonic element in the city is Jesuit Georgetown University. the Masonic Street Layout and Monuments, and the 2008 World Conference of Masonic Grand Lodges. Wow. You know something? I once thought of starting a company. You know, people love to go to Washington, D.C., but I thought I'd start a tourist company that would tell you the real truth behind all the little monuments and things that go on there. Fascinating. Okay. And of course we'd get into the obelisk, but I won't do that today. I've done many shows in the past on that. But today let's do this. I have this little presentation. It's called the Deplorable Secrets, Jesuit Secrets Revealed. Let's go to that and see what this gentleman has to say.
The recent election of Cardinal Giorgio Bergoglio to the position of Pope Francis I was an unprecedented event the world has never before witnessed. It is the first time in history that a member of the Jesuit Order has been elected to the highest position of the Roman Catholic Church. Reactions worldwide varied from jubilation to matter-of-fact acceptance to disinterest. These very reactions reveal appalling ignorance of the true nature of the Jesuit Order. Widely regarded as a benevolent missionary order, known for its educational institutions, the Jesuit Order, as the Society of Jesus is commonly known, has long played an incredibly influential, albeit secretive, role in the destinies of nations, organizations, and individuals. Rulers, presidents, scholars, and even Catholics themselves, who are aware of the evil perpetrated by this powerful, far-reaching order, have left on record grave warnings that all should heed. Following is a compilation of quotes from a variety of sources. Some admit that their own diabolical organizations were modeled on Jesuit principles. Others give warning. A number of those who sought to warn did so at the cost of their lives. World's Last Chance would encourage all to carefully study the following material. Proverbs 1:5 tells us, "A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels." Ignatius Loyola, 1491 to 1556, founder of the Society of Jesus and its first superior general. Nor will it contribute a little to our advantage if with caution and secrecy we foment and heighten the animosities that arise among princes and great men, even to such a degree that they may weaken each other. But if there appear any likelihood of reconciliation, then as soon as possible let us endeavor to be the mediators, lest others prevent us. Finally, let all with such artfulness gain the ascendant over princes, noblemen, and the magistrates of every place, that they may be ready at our beck, even to sacrifice their nearest relations and most intimate friends, when we say it is for our interest and advantage. Let proper methods be used to get knowledge of the animosities that arise among great men, that we may have a finger in reconciling their differences. For by this means we shall gradually become acquainted with their friends and secret affairs, and of necessity engage one of the parties in our interests. Immediately upon the death of any person of post, let them take timely care to get some friend of our society preferred in his room. But this must be cloaked with such cunning and management as to avoid giving the least suspicion of our intending to usurp the prince's authority. Put Putting aside all private judgment, we should always be ready to accept this principle. I will believe that the white I see as black, if the hierarchical church so defines it. Princes and persons of distinction everywhere must, by all means, be so managed that we may have their ear, and that will easily secure their hearts, by which way of proceeding all persons will become our creatures, and no one will dare to give the society the least disquiet or opposition. Finally, the society must endeavor to effect this at least, that having gotten the favor and authority of princes, those who do not love them at least fear them. Paolo Sarpi, 1552 to 1623, a Venetian patriot, scholar, scientist, and church reformer. They are a public plague, and the plague of the world. From the Jesuit colleges there never is sent a pupil obedient to his father, devoted to his country, loyal to his prince. Every species of vice finds its patronage in them. There is no perjury, nor sacrilege, nor parricide, nor incest, nor rapine, nor fraud, nor treason, which cannot be masked as meritorious beneath the mantle of their dispensation. Muccio Vitelleschi, 1562 to 1645, 6th Superior General of the Society of Jesus. When sovereigns require a Jesuit's opinion on any subject, the Jesuit in question is to report the matter to his superior, who is to lay it before several Jesuits for discussion. The resolution formed after this consultation is supplied to the Jesuit, who has been consulted by the sovereign. Priest Antoine Arnaud, 1612 to 1694. Do you wish to excite troubles, to provoke revolution, to produce the total ruin of your country? Call in the Jesuits and build magnificent colleges for these hot-headed religionists. Suffer those audacious priests in their dictatorial and dogmatic tone to decide on affairs of state. Michelangelo Tamburini, 1648 to 1730, 14th Superior General of the Society of Jesus. See, sir, from this chamber I govern not only to Paris, but to China, not only to China, but to all the world, without anyone to know how I do it. Pope Clement XIV, 1705 to 1774. Following are Pope Clement XIV's words upon signing the bull of suppression and extinction of the Jesuits. A bull is the strongest legal document a pope can issue. The suppression is accomplished. I do not repent of it, having only resolved on it after examining and weighing everything, and because I thought it necessary for the Church. If it were not done, I would do it now. But this suppression will be my death. Pope Clement XIV knew the Jesuits very well, and expected to die at their hands. He was correct. He was poisoned. A peasant woman was persuaded by means of a disguise to procure entrance into the Vatican and offered to the Pope a fig in which poison was concealed. Clement XIV was exceedingly fond of this fruit and ate it without hesitation. The same day the first symptoms of severe illness were observed, and to these rapidly succeeding violent inflammation of the bowels. He soon became convinced that he was poisoned, and remarked, "Alas, I knew they would poison me, but I did not expect to die in so slow and cruel a manner." His terrible sufferings continued for several months. When he died, the poor victim, said Comenon, of the execrable Jesuits to which the Bishop of Pistoia, Scipio di Ricci, the nephew and heir of Jesuit General Ricci, fully agreed. Pope Pius VII, the Pope who restored the Society of Jesus. Soon after Pope Pius VII was released from Napoleon's prison in 1814, he quickly restored the Society of Jesus with the papal bull Sollicitudo Omnium Ecclesiarum. If any should again attempt to abolish it, the Society of Jesus, he would incur the indignation of Almighty God and of the holy apostles Peter and Paul. John Adams, 1735-1826, second President of the United States of America. In 1816, John Adams wrote to Thomas Jefferson, third President of the United States, regarding the restoration of the Society of Jesus. My history of the Jesuits is not eloquently written, but it is supported by unquestionable authorities, is very particular and very horrible. Their restoration is indeed a step toward darkness, cruelty, perfidy, despotism, death. I do not like the appearance of the Jesuits. If ever there were a body of men who merited eternal damnation on earth and in hell, it is this Society of Loyolas. Shall we not have regular swarms of them here, in as many disguises as only a king of the gypsies can assume, dressed as painters, publishers, writers, and schoolmasters? If ever there was a body of men who merited eternal damnation on earth and in hell, it is this Society of Loyolas.
Okay, and I wanted to mention one thing here. When they're talking about this particular point in history, when the Jesuits were supposedly disbanded and then miraculously reinstituted, the American Revolution was going on, and I believe there was something more. I believe the Vatican was working hand in hand with Jesuit General Ricci, who never, I believe, died, as they said, in prison, but was used as a ploy to Americans back in the States who said, now our enemy has been destroyed. And when your enemy is destroyed, as the Art of War, Sun Tzu's Art of War says, when you're weak, that's when you can do your most damage. So I differ with that point in history. I believe, on the surface, they tell you, one pope disbands them, the other brings them back. But I believe there was a hidden agenda, and that hidden agenda played out in America. And that's where it comes into play with us, and how we, I believe, have been used by the Jesuits. And you see how they've grown in power to this day. Amazing. I prefer, that you check this out yourself. Do your own history on General Jesuit Ricci during that period of time. And you'll find some amazing things back with this presentation.
Compelled by our system to offer them asylum. Napoleon Bonaparte, 1769 to 1821, Emperor of the French. The Jesuits are a military organization, not a religious order. Their chief is a general of an army, not the mere father abbot of a monastery. And the aim of this organization is power. Power in its most despotic exercise. Absolute power, universal power, power to control the world by the volition of a single man. Jesuitism is the most absolute of despotisms, and at the same time the greatest and most enormous of abuses. The general of the Jesuits insists on being master sovereign over the sovereign. Wherever the Jesuits are admitted, they will be masters, cost what it may. Their society is by nature dictatorial, and therefore it is the irreconcilable enemy of all constituted authority. Every act, every crime, however atrocious, is a meritorious work, if committed for the interest of the Society of the Jesuits or by the order of the General. Adam Weishaupt, 1748 to 1830, a Jesuit German philosopher and founder of the Order of the Illuminati. The degree of power to which the representatives of the Society of Jesus had been able to attain in Bavaria was all but absolute. Members of the order were the confessors and preceptors of the electors, hence they had a direct influence upon the policies of government. The censorship of religion had fallen into their eager hands, to the extent that some of the parishes even were compelled to recognize their authority and power. To exterminate all Protestant influence and to render the Catholic establishment complete, they had taken possession of the instruments of public education. It was by Jesuits that the majority of the Bavarian colleges were founded, and by them they were controlled. By them also the secondary schools of the country were conducted. The Marquis de Lafayette, 1757 to 1834, a French statesman and general. It is my opinion that if the liberties of this country, the United States of America, are destroyed, it will be by the subtlety of the Roman Catholic Jesuit priests, for they are the most crafty, dangerous enemies to civil and religious liberty. They have instigated most of the wars of Europe. Friedrich von Hardenberg, 1772 to 1801, German philosopher. Never before in the course of the world's history had such a society, that is, the Jesuit order, appeared. The old Roman Senate itself did not lay schemes for world domination with greater certainty of success. André-Marie Jean-Jacques Dupin, 1783 to 1865, a French statesman. The Jesuits are a naked sword whose hilt is at Rome, but its blade is everywhere, invisible until its stroke is felt. Samuel Morse, 1791 to 1872, American inventor of the telegraph. They are Jesuits. This society of men, after exerting their tyranny for upwards of 200 years, at length became so formidable to the world, threatening the entire subversion of all social order, that even the Pope, whose devoted subjects they are, and must be, by the vow of their society, was compelled to dissolve them. They had not been suppressed, however, for 50 years before the waning influence of popery and despotism required their useful labors to resist the light of democratic liberty, and the Pope, Pius VII, simultaneously with the formation of the Holy Alliance, revived the order of the Jesuits in all their auray. From their vow of unqualified submission to the sovereign pontiff, they have been appropriately called the Pope's bodyguard. And do Americans need to be told what Jesuits are? They are a secret society, a sort of Masonic order, with super-added features of revolting odiousness, and 1,000 times more dangerous. They are not merely priests or of one religious creed. They are merchants and lawyers and editors and men of any profession having no outward badge in this country by which to be recognized. They are about in all your society. They can assume any character, that of angels of light or ministers of darkness, to accomplish their one great end, the service upon which they are sent, whatever that service may be. They are all educated men, prepared and sworn to start at any moment and in any direction, and for any service, commanded by the general of their order, bound to no family, community, or country by the ordinary ties which bind men, and sold for life to the cause of the Roman pontiff. And who are these agents? They are, for the most part, Jesuits, an ecclesiastical order proverbial through the world for cunning, duplicity, and total want of moral principle, an order so skilled in all the arts of deception that even in Catholic countries, in Italy itself, it became intolerable and the people required its suppression.
Okay, that was Samuel Morse, and we've discussed what he's had to say in the past. But take those words and think about them. Is it playing out right before our eyes today? Are the Jesuits involved? It is my firm belief they are involved in destroying our Constitution, destroying this country from within. That was their main goal in the beginning, and you can see it playing out right today in these presidential elections if you look closely. You can also ask your congressman about it, your senator, see what they say. And most likely they work with them as well. Back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal on FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the left behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.